Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of UAP Manila Archizonian Chapter MArCadong Talakayan.
Urbanization is a driving force for growth and poverty reduction. Globally, over 80% of economic activity is concentrated in cities, which lifts millions of people out of poverty through the opportunities that density and agglomeration can bring with jobs, services, and innovation. However, if not carefully managed and planned, the benefits of urbanization are not realized and can result in congestion, slums, pollution, inequality, and crime.
Good afternoon once again, especially to my fellow Archizonians at para po sa ating mga viewers from different parts of the world. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Kamusta po kayong lahat? I do hope all is well. Welcome po dito sa UAP Manila Archizonian Chapter, MArCadong Talakayan, Episode 11. This is your host, Architect Ava Villaflor, Sumabal, UAP. This project has started since fiscal year 2020 to 2021 at the first term of our current chapter president, Architect Majore Fortin-Buendia. This is to promote architecture profession through effective communication, strengthen the value of architecture to the community at large. Ang UAP Manila Archizonian Chapter po mula sa miyembro hanggang sa mga officers nito ay nakikiisa sa pagpapahalaga sa profesyon ng arkitektong Pilipino. We are Filipino architects and we stand against HB 10234. So for tonight's episode, we'll be talking about urban development in the Philippines. For the past decades, marami na pong developments ang nagawa sa ating bansa. And this have been spearheaded by different heads of the country. But given those developments, there are still issues and challenges in the urban development of the Philippines that we need to encounter to be able to say na nakakasabay na tayo globally. Through our talakayan tonight, we might hear from our guests and reactors about sector of urban development, principles of physical planning, national spatial strategies, the contents of urban development, and a call to action for architects in designing spaces for sustainable development. Without further ado, I would like to introduce to you our first reactor. He is a registered and licensed architect since 2006, graduated at MLQU in 1992. By 2009, he became a registered Grade A architect engineer at Urban Planning and Development Authority or UPDA at Qatar. By 2018, he became a registered professional architect engineer through Saudi Council of Engineers SCE KSA. Currently, he is working with Riyadh Metro Project Line 3 for 3A1 and 3A2 elevated station, 3E5, 3E6, and 3F1 deep underground station subway. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our UAP MArC Committee Head on Professional Development, Architect Gil Castro, UAP. Hello po, Architect Gil.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to be here in this kind of topic. It's very interesting.
Ayan. Sir, anong oras na po dyan?
12:30 in the afternoon.
12 na. So, ayan. Thank you po, Architect Gil.
Thank you, ma'am.
For our second reactor, he is a registered and licensed architect since 2011. Graduated from University of the Philippines, Mindanao last 2009. His notable projects are Beach Resort, Cemetery, Urban Master Plan for Metro Davao, and others. Currently, he is working as a City Planning and Development Coordinator at LGU Panabo City. Ladies and gentlemen, our second reactor, the chapter president of UAP North Davao Chapter, Dr. Architect Joseph Raymund A. Sumabal, UAP PIEP. Hello po, Architect Joseph.
Po, salamat sa pag-invite. It's an honor to be here po.
Yan, maayong gabi, tama po ba?
Mayong gabi.
Kamusta po ang weather dyan sa Davao?
Umuulan po ngayon.
Pareho din po dito sa Thailand. Kasalukuyang kumukulog. Ayan, marami po salamat.
Thank you.
For our third reactor, ang mainstay po ng MArCadong Talakayan from our pilot episode to present. Ayan, no? He is registered and licensed architect since June of 2001. Graduated also at MLQU, batch 1998. He is currently working as a junior project manager for HPS Play company at Dubai. His notable projects are Saudi Aramco Shedgum gas plant at KSA last 2006. In 2007, desalination plant Kuraya at KSA. In 2008, King Abdulaziz Science and Technology. In 2011, the Doha Convention Center and Tower at Doha. In 2015, Landmark Headquarters at Dubai, UAE. In 2017, Dubai Safari, also at Dubai, yeah. And currently, the SeaWorld project at Dubai, Abu Dhabi, UAE. Mga markadong manonood, an OFW member of UAP Manila Archizonian chapter, please welcome Architect Leo Romero, UAP.
Good afternoon po ulit sa inyo. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening.
Architect Leo, busy pa rin po ba kayo sa mga projects ninyo?
Medyo. Dapat pauwi ako ngayong next week sana. Unfortunately, sabi ko nga kay Architect March 14, dapat atin sana ako ng anniversary. But unfortunately, because of the ticket, masyadong mataas.
Oo.
Kaya baka i-cancel ko na lang muna. Baka January na lang muna ako.
Okay, thank you very much po, Architect Leo. And of course, hindi na po natin patatagalin pa. For our guest tonight, he will be talking more about the urban development in the Philippines based on his knowledge and experiences. He is a PRC licensed environmental planner and a real estate consultant, also a real estate broker, real estate appraiser, and CPA, but focus on ENP and REC. Currently, he is the president and lead consultant of Astrata Consulting Incorporation, and an environmental planning and a real estate consultant firm based in Angeles City, Pampanga. His experience in leading, coordinating, mapping the comprehensive land use plans are first the ongoing Angeles City, Pampanga. Second is the ongoing Mayantok, Tarlac, Candelaria, Zambales, Cabangan, Zambales, Pura, Tarlac, Cuyapo, Nueva Ecija, and his completed works are Cabancalan City, Negros Occidental, Nampikuan, Nueva Ecija, Samuan, Masantol, San Luis, and Santa Ana, Pampanga. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our guest for tonight's episode, ENP Jonathan John G. Maldupana.
Good day to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the United Architects of the Philippines, Archizonian chapter. Ang ganda ng name ng chapter niya, for this opportunity to share with you some insights on urban development. Special thanks po kay chapter president Majore Fortin-Buendia for inviting me, and of course I look forward to a fruitful discussion with you, chapter secretary and host Architect Ava. And Reactors, Architect Hill, Architect Joseph, and Architect Leo. And it's very nice to meet all of you as well.
Thank you very much,
Thank you, sir.
Yes. So, sir, may I ask before we take a break po, para po sa mga ordinaryo po nating Pilipinong manonood, could you give us a brief introduction about urban development in the Philippines?
Sure. So, urban development, i-define lang muna natin siya. This is defined already in one of our laws, yung Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development Act, yung RA 11201. Ginawa ng DSUD, kumbaga, yung different na mga housing agencies natin. So sabi sa definition ng law na to, urban development refers to the process of occupation and use of land or space para sa iba-ibang activities tulad ng residential, industrial, commercial, and yung mga combinations din ng mga activities na to that are necessary to carry out the functions of urban living. And itong urban development din, no, it entails the building or rebuilding of more or less mga permanent structures. Most of the time naman, mga permanent structures yung ginagawa natin over land that is often withdrawn or converted from its original use, typically agriculture, no, yung or vacant land, yung original use, resulting in the creation of a built environment. So andyan yung mga roads natin and mga buildings natin. Yeah, so that's urban development. Later, discuss pa natin, no? Pwede natin himayin din, ano ba yung urban, ano ba yung development, ano ba yung urban planning. Yeah, we can talk about those concepts later.
Thank you very much, ENPJT. Yan. Sa ating po pagbabalik, we'll be hearing some prepared questions from our reactors. For the meantime, please watch this.
Di tayo nauubusan ng hugot. Mula sa love life, hanggang sa everyday life. Sitwasyon ng bansa at ng madla. Kaya nag-survey kami para maipon ang mga wishlist upang gumawa ng long-term vision para sa sarili at sa country. Yun bang gusto nating ma-achieve by 2040? Ito yung magiging checklist ng ating actions and decisions at magsisilbing peg ng gobyerno at mamamayan. Dahil together sa 2040, ang mga hugot masasagot. Yan ang ambisyon natin 2040. Gina ba kayo?
Urbanization is a driving force for growth and poverty reduction. Globally, over 80% of economic activity is concentrated in cities, which lifts millions of people out of poverty through the opportunities that density and agglomeration can bring with jobs, services, and innovation. However, if not carefully managed and planned, the benefits of urbanization are not realized and can result in congestion, slums, pollution, inequality, and crime.
Welcome back everyone sa ating MArCadong Talakayan, episode 11, wherein our topic would be urban development in the Philippines. Napakalawak po ng usaping ito, but we will dwell only on the questions coming from our reactors para masimulan po natin ito. ENPJT, here is the question of our first reactor, Architect Gil Castro. So sir, ang tanong po ni Architect Gil, urban renewal, can the existing city planning of Manila adopt the parameter or characteristic of walkable and bikeable city?
Okay, thank you po for that question. It's a very good question. It's also very timely po, no? We really need to make our cities walkable. Pero before we answer po yung question na yan, no, na kaya ba nating ma-adapt ang walkability or bikeability, no, sa City of Manila particularly? Tingnan lang po muna natin yung definition of walkability. Actually po medyo matagal na rin to, tong concept na to, tong idea na to. It has been around since the 90s. And it focuses on the basics of the urban context and the elements affecting walkability. Ito po ang walkability, meron po siyang depende po, no, sa source. Marami pong iba-ibang sources, iba-iba yung mga principles nila. Pero overall po, ito yung mga parang pinaka-common na threads pag pinag-uusapan po ang walkability. First of all is dapat fine-grained ang pedestrian circulation. Ibig sabihin, tuloy-tuloy, no? Connected yung mga pedestrian circulation natin, pedestrian walkways, no? Yung mga different paths and alleys natin. Second principle is dapat po i-orient natin yung mga buildings natin to our streets and open spaces, no? So tamang orientation ng mga buildings natin. Third, we have to organize yung mga uses natin para po ay they support mga public activities, no? Kapag hindi po natin inorganize na tama yung mga land uses natin to support mga activities, wala pong taong pupunta dyan, no? So mahalaga po yung ating mga parks, mga plazas, etc. There are many more na principles po, no, sa walkability. Try po nating sagutin muna, no, yung ating tanong. So sabi ni Architect Gil, no, sa City of Manila, can we adopt the parameters or the characteristics of a walkable and bikeable city? There are places po, no, in Metro Manila na we can definitely implement tong walkability. No? We can widen our streets, we can convert certain streets, we can close off. No? In other countries, they are even closing off their streets para po sa different activities, no, to replace them. That could be shops, that could be playgrounds, no? And depende po yan actually sa acceptability rin ng local residents. No? So it has to come from participatory planning. First, we have to propose this doon sa mga certain areas na gusto natin gawan ng walkability or bikeability. And then we listen. We listen to the local people. Ano ba yung tingin nila na okay lang ba na gawing mas walkable yung area nila? Okay lang ba i-close off yung area nila, i-convert into other uses? Or would this cause further congestion? Yan. So maaari po natin sabihin na medyo complex din, no? If you would like to make our cities more especially Metro Manila or City of Manila more walkable. We have to consider those factors.
Okay. So, Architect Hill, do you have any reactions from what ENPJT have said? Yes.
Okay. With regards to your certain places that can be adapt the walkability of the city planning of Manila, in your own opinion, what will be the best location to be a walkability in the city of Manila? From Ermita to Sampaloc to Malate. It's like this, sir.
Okay, thank you for that reaction, Architect Hill.
Yes, sir.
First of all, ang maganda pong pinakaunahin natin na gawing walkable is yung areas around our transit stations, around our train stations. No? Of course, lahat po tayo, planners and architects, aware na tayo sa trend na to, no? Yung transit-oriented development. No? It's about different studies, iba-iba po yung distances nila from train stations. Ilang meters nga po ba? Mga 800 meters, no? Or half a mile or 1/4 mile. So yung area po na yon around our train stations, around our transport terminals, we have to make those areas walkable. And there are many ways, no, for us to make those areas walkable. We can have tree-lined accessways. We can have covered accessways. Make those streets safer, no, slower traffic. And many other strategies. So yun po yung mga dapat nating unahin, Architect Hill. And of course, secondly, syempre yung mga areas with very high foot traffic, no? So andyan yung ating University Belt. So of course, Espanya, kasama po dyan. Areas of, actually kaya natin gawing walkable in the entire Taft Avenue, no? We just have to, may mga ano lang po dyan, medyo may mga, anong tamang term natin? May mga encroaching na properties ba or may mga encroaching na developments na we have to clear and replace with strategies that would make them more walkable.
I guess kung sa kahabaan ng Taft, 'di ba, yung LRT diyan, pwede po yan lagyan yung walkable yung sa ilalim, 'di ba? Ilalim ng ng LRT. Kasi dito sa Thailand nagawa na po yan eh. And I know if siguro money o merong budget, I think magagawa yan.
Another challenge, Architect Ava, no, sa walkability sa ilalim ng mga train stations natin. Pag bumagyo, no, nagbabaha yung mga roads natin dyan. Ayun, so mas mahirap siyang daanan. Tumutulo directly from the train line, no, yung rain, no, so mahirap din siya daanan. So we have to address those issues na during the rainy season.
Hello.
Yes,
I think you can address also the flood flooding along that tunnel line of the Tapabi by means of you putting some trees also. Because if you have a series of trees on that area, you can put some shadings for the walkable people who passing through. And also for the flooding, because every tree has a water consumption. Remember, also can help to prevent also the climate change also because the photosynthesis and the carbon dioxide that they can absorb of this and protect all the people passing around.
Tama po yan. Maganda pong suggestion yun, Architect Hill. No? So trees talaga one of our best ways to make our streets walkable. No? Nabanggit niyo po yung absorption ng trees, no, ng flood waters. Alam naman po natin, no, as planners and architects, yung ating sa building code may tinatawag tayo na yung permeable surface area na hindi masyado nasusunod sa ating cities. No? We have to implement that kasi yan po yung ating sponge. No? Yan yung nag-absorb ng ating rainwater. And there are many cities around the world na shifting towards becoming a what we call sponge city. No? Kumbaga, yung city na yon sobrang dami lang wetland areas, vegetated areas na nag-absorb ng flood water bago pa ito mag-overflow sa kanilang streets, no? Sa kanilang mga walkways. And nangunguna dyan ngayon China, no? So marami silang mga cities na experimenting on becoming sponge cities. Yan. Sadly, yung pinakauna nilang sponge city na experiment, which is Zhengzhou in China, nung July, no? Although marami na siyang strategies on becoming a sponge city, hindi niya kinaya yung kumbaga parang rainfall nung July, which is 1 year's worth of rain nahulog lang in just 3 days, no? So talagang binaha lahat ng streets nila, binaha yung subway nila, and more than 200 yung lost lives during that flooding. Pero that does not mean na hindi na tayo mag-shift towards that kind of strategy in making our cities more flood resilient and more walkable. Thank you, sir.
At least it can prevent, no, sir, for the climate change also.
Definitely.
Okay. So, Architect Hill, do you still have any other follow-up questions? Sige po, Architect Hill.
Sir, EMPJT, my second question is, Philippines is archipelago. What are the cause, effect, and solution of transportation network for Philippine economic growth?
Thank you for your question, Architect Hill. That question now goes into the domain of what we call regional planning. No? So it's all about connecting different metro areas na. No? It's a bit higher na sa urban planning. Sa urban planning, of course, cities lang and metro areas. Pero we can also answer that cause, effect, and solution of transportation network for Philippine economic growth. Of course, mas challenging, no, ang interconnection sa Philippines dahil archipelago tayo. And partly we were able to answer that problem or address that problem through yung ating yung RORO system natin, no? Actually, this was partially addressed, no, during the time of President Arroyo, where she introduced this Philippine Nautical Highway system. We were able to connect our islands through the RORO system. No? Our land transportation can now travel through boat, no, to our different islands. Now, if we are to zoom in, no, sa ating for example kahit sa Luzon muna, no, if we are to zoom in right now, we have different ways, no, to connect all our urban areas, and primarily we are doing that, of course, through our expressways. No, we have the NLEX, SLEX, etc. Right now we are also doing yung Central Luzon Expressway, so we could have faster travel from Metro Manila to Isabela, no, to the Cagayan region. So that's one way, no, within each of our islands. In Mindanao, we are also now developing, tama ba, Architect Joseph? We have highways there. There are planned train lines over there. Ano yung projects natin dyan, Architect Joseph?
DOTR's Mindanao Railway Project. It's a 1,000 plus kilometers railway project, but the first phase involves a 100-kilometer project from Tagum, which is in Davao del Norte, goes to Davao City and to Digos, Davao del Sur. So it's one of the flagship projects under the RD administration. And it's one of the good things in transportation because it's good to have to reduce the number of vehicles in the roads so that there will be less congestion and more areas for people. But the prerequisite to that is it should have a good public transportation. So these projects for like the railway and all other infrastructure project for better public transportation is on the way for the Philippines, especially for areas that have least or no mass transportation, like in the Mindanao. This is the first railway for Mindanao, which is in Davao region for the first phase. Hopefully, this will cover the entire Mindanao for the whole 1,000+ kilometers railway project.
Thank you, Architect Joseph. Now, going back to your question, Architect Hill, no, one part of your question is what is the cost of a transportation network? Now, if we were talking about yung mga expressways natin, no, one cost of the formation or the creation of those expressways is for us to facilitate yung interaction between our metro areas. So, for example, Metro Manila interaction with Metro Angeles, Metro Angeles interaction with Metro Olongapo. And sa urban planning kasi we have this what we call na theory na gravity model of human interaction. No? If we have two very large centers in terms of population, mas stronger yung kanilang bond or connection with each other. And for you to foster that bond and to have stronger economic development, no, from the interaction of those two centers, then better if you can create, no, yung mga expressways natin na nakikita natin ngayon. Pero one of the effects of our development of our expressways is yung tinatawag na habitat fragmentation, no? Ano po yung habitat fragmentation? Dating tuloy-tuloy na forest area siya na freely gumagalaw diyan yung mga animals, no? From their homes to their feeding areas, bigla mong binisect ng expressway, no? So nangyayari po yan. For example, may nagsabi po na nangyayari ano sa SCTEX, no, na divide yung northern area from the south.
Meron ako nakita sa Facebook na I don't know what country is that, na isang area na usually ang maraming mga animals na nagsisitawiran, and then they put a road. Ang ginawa nila is naggumawa sila ng parang bridge. And then that bridge has vegetation para, kumbaga, on top of the road, yung expressway, meron silang ginawang bridge para lang yung mga animals makatawid from one point to another.
That's right, no, Architect Ava. Actually, naalala ko rin, no, that's a solution na ginawa sa Netherlands.
Ayun.
No? So, ang tawag doon is a wildlife bridge. Or what they call eco-duct. No, tama yun, no, na they created din yung mga vegetation over that very wide na na parang overhead na crossing for wildlife. Yeah.
Okay. So, Architect Hill, do you still have any other follow-up questions or okay na po?
Okay na po.
Yan. Thank you very much, Architect Hill.
Thank you.
So next po, ENPJT. This question is coming from our second reactor, Dr. Architect Joseph Raymund Sumabal. So the question is, for LGUs that group themselves to coordinate or consolidate their efforts, services and resources for purposes commonly beneficial to them like Metropolitan Manila, Cebu, and Davao, what would be the most basic urban development issues that they should prioritize to solve or address first?
Thank you for that question, Architect Joseph. Architect Dr. Paano po ang unahin ko? Dr. Architect. Sorry po, kailangan ma-address ko kayo ng tama.
Ano po ba tama?
Architect is okay.
Architect is okay. Okay.
Okay, so thank you for that question, Architect Joseph. It's a very very important question, no? So what would be the most basic urban development issues na dapat unahin? And it's also a very difficult question because there are a lot of issues na we have to face, no? As our cities become more complex, mas humahabol din, no? Mas nagiging complex din yung mga problems natin. Actually, hindi tayo maubusan ng problems as the complexity of our cities increase, no? So ano dapat yung ating unahin, no? Napakagandang tanong. Now, there could be different perspectives for us to answer that question. One such perspective, I can offer you three, no, na perspectives, and we can have as many perspectives actually as we have stakeholders, no. One such perspective is dapat yung ating planning should model or should come from ano ba yung basic needs ng tao, no? So needs based, rights based, no. And we have learned from our siguro from college, you know, we've learned about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's a very good starting point, no? It's actually a managerial theory or concept, pero it's really applicable then in urban planning. So sabi sa Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we have to start with the physiological needs, no? We have to start with that, yung mga physical needs natin. So we have to prioritize, we have to prioritize life, no? So what developments can we do to make our air cleaner, our water cleaner, no? And mas accessible, mas affordable sa lahat. What can we do para yung ating food, no, for our citizens mas accessible, mas affordable, mas healthy, no? And dapat mas we have to think of developments then prioritizes making our cities clean. And finally, as part of addressing yung mga physiological needs, ito yung pinakamahalaga rin, no? Decent housing, no? Ito yung mahirap i-address, nahuhuling i-address sa ating mga cities, no? So thankfully sa City of Manila, meron tayo recently, no, last year ba, na ipatayo natin yung yung tinatawag na condominium, no? So condominium sa Tondo, no? Yung mga parang 5-story or mid-rise na socialized housing, no?
Ayan. Architect Joseph, any reactions po from what ENPJT have said?
Actually, I agree to what ENPJT pointed out. So, depende talaga yan sa perspectives. Depende sa mga stakeholders involved in the consolidation ng mga LGUs on what metropolitan yung sinong mga LGUs yung kasali sa metropolitan na consolidation. For one thing, marami kasi depende din yun sa level ng development, urban development ng mga LGUs involved. So, for one LGU, it might be yung issues nila is on water. For other LGU, maganda na yung water nila. So, it's another thing. So, from there, they might need to take a stand on what should be the first urban development issue that they should consider and solve first. But of course, maganda din yung point na sinabi ni ENPJT na meron talagang needs na hindi mo talaga pwedeng i-discount or paano ba yan sa Tagalog? Iulahi. I-left behind or yung parang ganun. So, basically, there are some issues, urban development issues that should come first because it's part of the basic needs that no household or family or any individual cannot live without it. So, for example, water, housing, and yung sinabi ni ENPJT na physiological needs according to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So basically, I agree with ENPJT on that. I just have a follow-up question regarding the points discussed by ENPJT, especially that ENPJT mentioned that depende dun sa stakeholders, they can have different perspectives, and ENPJT offered us different perspectives. So given those differences in perspective, though these LGUs have common problems uh, which they will address together through coordinated and consolidated efforts. My question is that in what ways these LGUs that group themselves be unified or united given their individualities and their differences in their interests, especially that these LGUs are in different levels of urban development.
Thank you for that question, Architect Joseph. Napakagandang question po yan, no? So, how can itong mga metro areas, no, yung mga neighboring LGUs, how can they address common na mga issues? Tama po ba?
Yes po.
Yes. Okay. So, there are many ways, no? One such way is the organization of these LGUs into councils, no? So, for example, we have the Metro Iloilo Guimaras Economic Development Council. We also have yung mga development authorities natin, no? MMDA. We also have MBDA, no? Metro Bataan Development Authority. We have all those sorts of councils and development authorities throughout the Philippines. In Davao, ano ba yung tawag nyo, Architect Joseph?
Metro Davao.
Metro Davao Development Authority. Tama ba? Or is it a
The
council?
official name is still under process Congress for enactment. So basically, merong Metro Davao Development Coordinating Council. So MDDCC.
MDDCC. Yeah, so that's very good. That's the first step, no? And the second step would be for them to create plans, no? So Metro, for example, Metro Davao Sustainable Development Plan. And while doing those plans, one of the most important principles is participatory planning. No? So I've mentioned a while ago, we have different stakeholders. We have stakeholders from the top, from the bottom, from the side. No, all of them have to meet. No, they have to have the same mind. No? What development they would like for those metro areas in the future. We have to involve actually sa ating mga planning activities, and this has been lacking for many years. No, we have to involve people from different sectors. Kasi nangyayari ngayon, dahil bitin sa budget, no, hindi enough yung venue dati before the pandemic. Konti lang yung na-invite sa mga planning activities. No? Most commonly mga department heads, mga chief executives. Pero hindi natin na-invite yung mga CSO, yung mga civil society organizations, mga people's organizations. We have to invite them because the people who are closest to the problem are farthest away from power and resources, and that is why we have to connect them through our planning activities. So yun yung first step, organize into councils and development authorities, and second, make those planning activities more inclusive, more participatory, more consensus based, no? And so that we can all achieve itong tinatawag natin na social justice. Yan.
Architect Joseph?
I just would like to agree on some more discussions with ENPJT, especially with the creation of the council. Although they might have different interests because of the level of urban development is different from one LGU to another, but that would espouse a big brother, small brother relationship between a more developed city than a less developed municipality. So, and from there, I also agree on ENPJT's participatory planning, where CSOs and other stakeholders should be invited, because from this perspective in planning, more people will take ownership for the urban development that will be planned and will be implemented in the future. So thank you for that very wonderful discussion, ENPJT. I love this discussion so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Architect Joseph.
Thank you, Architect Joseph. Napaka-deep po talaga ng usaping ito, and especially kapag LGUs na ang involved, no? So, and I guess maganda itong pag-usapan, lalo na nalalapit na naman ng eleksyon. Anyway, mamaya naman po, we will ask the insight and the questions of our third reactor po ng MArCadong Talakayan. So, please stay tuned. We will be back for more. For the meantime, here's our chapter and national announcements.
Urbanization is a driving force for growth and poverty reduction. Globally, over 80% of economic activity is concentrated in cities, which lifts millions of people out of poverty through the opportunities that density and agglomeration can bring with jobs, services, and innovation. However, if not carefully managed and planned, the benefits of urbanization are not realized and can result in congestion, slums, pollution, inequality, and crime.
Welcome back po sa MArCadong Talakayan. Ito po, ENP Jonathan, ang tanong ng ating third reactor na si Architect Leo. What is appropriate that you can suggest if you will develop NCR metropolis, gridline urban planning, or circular urban planning?
Thank you, Architect Leo, sa question mo. No? Gridline urban planning or circular urban planning. Yung gridline, yan yung pinaka-oldest no, na street pattern that we have. It started ancient times pa, no? And in-start yan ni the father of Western town planning, si Hippodamus of Miletus, no? It's a Greek architect. And since then, yung grid iron or yung grid format of developing our cities, yun yung parang naging norm na no, sa Western world, no? Especially in the US. Of course, there are cities in Europe na naging radial din, no? Especially nung Dark Ages, na we have tong mga tinatawag na fortress cities. During the medieval times, we have tong mga tinatawag na cathedral cities, no? Na naka-center sa town yung cathedral, tapos nag-radiate outside from the center, yung mga roads, no? Whatever the format, no? Whatever the urban form, we have to consider na it's all about connectivity. It's making all important places in the city accessible to everyone. No? So that's the most important thing. Sa NCR, yung ating cities, no? Itong especially City of Manila and Quezon City, it was designed by Burnham, alam naman natin, as a radial circumferential na pattern. No? So may mga radial roads tayo, radial road 1 to 8, di ba? So Radial Road 3, for example, is South Luzon Expressway. Radial Road 8 is North Luzon Expressway. And we have this tong mga circumferential roads din, mga concentric na roads. Ilan ba sila? We have 6 circumferential roads. No? Pinaka-alam natin is si C5, si EDSA, ay, anyone knows? C4, si EDSA. No? So, a related question is this working for us so far? Itong nagawang plan na ito, no? Architect Leo. And how about you, architects? Anong tingin nyo? Is this working for us so far? Itong circumferential radial na urban form.
Sir, sa akin, sir, napansin ko na. Kasi unang-una, sa circumferential or radial road, since na nagpunta rin ako ng Qatar, kasi yun, may Deering Road, may Searing Road, may Beering Road. Ang napansin ko lang kasi sa radial is hindi ka pwedeng mag-counterflow. Right? Kumpara dun sa grid line, pwede kang mag one-way, pwede kang mag two-way. Pero sa radial, hindi ka pwedeng pumasok opposite. Yun lang napansin ko. Kaya, di ko alam. Pero, for me, I've been in Qatar. Circumferential, radial urban planning sila. At the same time, nakumpara ko rin yung dito, meron din dito sa Abu Dhabi. Meron silang most of the time yung mga ano nila is radial. Ang napapansin ko lang, nagkakaroon lang ng congestion dun sa radial. Yun lang napapansin ko. Although meron din naman sa Gridline, but the thing is, hindi, para sa akin, minimal siya. Yun ang napapansin ko lang. Yun
Tsaka
lang.
sa grid, thank you, Architect Leo. Tsaka sa Gridline, no, we can be more creative. Tama doon sa sinabi mo na some streets could be one way, no, some streets could be closed off, no. So yun naman yung advantage ng Gridline. One other thing po, no, na I would like to add is whether Gridline yan or gridiron yung term ng iba, or whether radial or circumferential ba yan. There are many other urban forms, no? Merong linear lang. Ang mahalaga is we provide public transportation. Kasi it's not dependent on how many roads that we create, no? The more roads we create, the more traffic we actually induce, no? Proven na yan through various studies. What we need is a shift to public transportation. So we have to encourage, no, yung more buses, more train lines, no? And the shift right now in trend natin is transit-oriented development, no? Around those train stations, around those terminals. And the shift, of course, is for us to slowly reduce yung ating traffic volumes in all of our streets. Kasi the more vehicles we have, of course, the more greenhouse gases that we emit, no? And that compounds yung ating climate crisis right now.
Any reactions, Architect Leo?
Tama naman yung sinabi ni TNT JT. Ngayon, tama naman yun, sir, kasi natutusin hanggang ngayon, sir, dapat talaga ina-encourage ang mga sa Pilipinas is yung public transport. Kasi napakadami. Simula nang nagkaroon ng drastic mass parang bus transportation during after ng EDSA revolution way back 1986. Kasi kung mapapansin mo ng time na yun, although hindi ako pro, hindi rin ako antaya. Napansin ko lang kasi during that time is ang public transport is owned by the government. Here in Dubai, yung public transport is owned by the government. Kaya limited ang pagbibigay nila wala silang praktisa dito. Kasi yung bus dito is RTA. Sa Saudi yung Seco ba yun o nakalimutan ko yung nila diyan eh. Nag-Saudi rin kasi ako.
Satco. Bus station there is Satco.
Oh, Satco yun. Limited siya. Kasi hindi katulad nung sa Pilipinas is hindi siya ma-regulate kasi meron silang batas sa LTFRB if I'm not mistaken na pwede kang mag-franchise. 'Di ba? Ngayon dito, dinidiscourage talaga nila rito na magkaroon ka ng sasakyan. Pero since na kailangan din kasi katulad ko, pumupunta ako sa iba't ibang kailangan mo talaga. There are no way para magkaroon ka. Pero sana yun ang maging ma-consider ng natin. At the same time, sana ma-consider din sa urban planning ngayon, yung natin, yung magiging, meron ba kayong plano in the near future, like mga charging station ng mga Tesla? Ewan ko sa Pilipinas kung may Tesla na, o may mga hybrid na. Meron na ba kayong plano doon? Kasi you need to look ahead din, 'di ba? Yun lang.
So, Architect Leo, any follow-up question? Okay.
Ayun po, yung ano po, yung meron na ba silang look ahead katulad ng mga charging station sa urban planning?
Thank you, Architect Leo. Magandang question po yun, no? Sinasama na po ba yan sa mga plans, no? Kapag po pinopropose namin yan na planners during planning workshops, medyo hesitant pa yung LGU to include that in their list of development projects, no? Pero we are communicating naman the value of shifting to electric vehicles, no, to our LGUs. Lalo po ngayon, meron tayong tinatawag na sa Philippines, no, medyo mas nagiging widespread na yung pag-adopt ng BERDE, yung ating green building na rating scheme sa Pilipinas, no. And one of their credits, no, is itong yung nasabi niyo na pagpo-provide ng charging stations. One of their tinatawag na categories, no, para masabing green building ka is if you provide preferred parking, no. So pag sinabing preferred parking, andyan yung parking for hybrid vehicles, LPG powered, ano pa ba, carpooling services, and kasama dapat dyan yung charging stations, no, for electric vehicles. Yan. So kasama po yan sa criteria for para masabing green building ang project mo. And we have a lot of cities na, no, in the Philippines na adopting or creating their own green building ordinances. For example, Pasig City, Muntinlupa City, and I hope yung pinaplan namin ngayon na Angeles City magkaroon din later ng green building ordinance. And itong mga ordinances na to, they can develop this in coordination with the Philippine Green Building Council, yung gumagawa po ng nag-update ng ating BERDE Green Building Rating Scheme.
Okay, at least na-consider niyo na rin yun dun sa mga design criteria na dinedesign nyo, especially na yung katulad dun sa Angeles. And then may isa pa akong question. I just only want to follow up with regards to the sabi rin ni architect dun sa mga walkways nila. Did you already consider din yung mga tawag doon, yung mga pavement absorbent, something like that one? Kasi di ba at the same time, di ba, since sinasabi mo nga is dun sa green building is yun sa BERDE na mga ini-implement yung yan sa Philippines. Did you consider also the solar reflectance index, wherein kapag ka gumamit ka ng mga, sabihin na natin mga materials na wherein masyadong mataas ang solar reflectance index na nag-create din ng sa climate change. Nasa design criteria ng BERDE. At the same time dun sa green building. Nako-consider din nyo rin ba yun?
Thank you, Architect Leo. Ang ganda ng mga questions mo, no? Sa BERDE, no? Sa BERDE kasi, they have how many categories? They have 9 na core framework ang tawag. And kasama ron sa core framework na yon yung green materials, use of land and ecology. Actually, yung dalawang two of your questions magpo-fall dun sa use of land and ecology, no? Sabi mo kanina yung absorbing na pavements, no? Permeable pavers. One of the categories kasi sa BERDE is the use of land and ecology. Sabi rito, dapat at least 25% ng open space ng mga buildings is vegetated, no? And they actually recommend din na doon sa vegetated open spaces na yon, hindi lang turf, no, hindi lang grass turf, but also a variety of plants, no, native plant species. And they're also discouraging, no? Kami sa urban planning, we're also discouraging na sobrang puro pavement lang. Dapat may mga permeable spaces tayo. Kaya lang ang reklamo nila sa permeable pavers sa mga parking areas, yung upkeep, no? From time to time, kailangan mo magputol ng grass, ng vegetation. Yan. Another thing, you've also mentioned yung sa reflectivity, no? Sa BERDE Green Building Rating Scheme, the closest na concept, no, doon sa sinabi nyo is yung reduction of the heat island effect, no? So, sabi sa BERDE, dapat at least 50% of horizontal spaces within projects should have strategies in order to reduce the heat island effect. And hindi naman connected sa Verde dito, pero we are also recommending of course na lighter paint, no, sa mga roofing natin in order to reflect yung heat. And of course the use of green roofs and vertical gardens. Yan. And finally, you've also mentioned yung consideration of materials, no? Sa Verde Green Building Rating Scheme, dapat sa costs ng materials at least 30%, no, ay green, no? So that means you're sourcing your products that are certified by, for example, the forest program for the endorsement of forest certification or PEFC, or yung certified wood by Forest Stewardship Council, no? So may mga certifications naman na sa Philippines for you to say na green yung materials mo. And lastly talaga, pinaka-final na, with regards to green materials pa rin, when we are sourcing our materials, dapat as close as possible to our site, no? Wag masyadong malayo because that will entail a lot of greenhouse gas emissions for transporting. Sa Verde, dapat at least your total cost or 10% of your total cost of materials dapat manufactured within 100 kilometers. No, pinakamalayo na yung 160 kilometers, talagang tatawid ka na. Kung sa Luzon ka, sa Visayas na yun, ibig sabihin, yung 160 kilometers na yun. So, yun yung mga rating schemes natin right now, mga strategies natin in the Philippines in order for us to have mas green, no, na development. Not just sa mga buildings natin, but the entire urban space. When we add vegetation, no, especially native vegetation sa ating mga projects, and not just within our projects, no, but also sa roads natin, no, that would have multiple benefits, no? So reducing the heat island effect, reducing yung reflectivity, greenhouse gas emissions, and of course, nakatulong din yan sa tinatawag natin na improving yung ating urban biodiversity. And sa cities natin, dapat may role po, no? Dapat may role yung mga cities natin in improving biodiversity. So provide vegetation, different vegetation for our natural insects, birds, etc. No? So iba ayaw ng mga ganon sa paligid nila, pero kailangan po natin yan, no? Yung mga insects and birds natin, yan yung mga nagpo-pollinate ng mga flowers, ng mga vegetables natin, no? Many benefits, many ecological benefits for us humans.
Sir, how about medicinal benefits for the plants? For example, you cultivating. There's a tree. There is a character. Some of the trees they have a character as a medicinal character. For example, like the area. May mga, for example, like the dita. You know the dita tree? No one. Neem as a neem tree.
Neem
we
oil.
call this neem tree. We call this in Tagalog Bulanga. It's also medicinal tree.
Okay. Ang familiar ako, sir, yung neem oil, yung pangbawas ng insects.
Oh,
Spray siya sa mga vegetables para mabawasan yung insects.
oh, doon ang galing yun. Ngayon, yung neem tree, isa rin siya sa mga insects na pang-balance. Especially the bark. Isa gray bark, especially for the insects. So, kung ikaw maglalakad, something in the night, at least yung mga mosquito or at least you have some shields, right? He can sway away like this.
Tama yun, sir.
There's a lot of benefits. There's a certain plants. Maganda kung ilalagay mo lang, especially sa side streets, kung ilalagay mo lang yung mga makakatulong sa tao at makakatulong sa environment. May mga karakter na puno na ganito.
Thank you, sir.
Maganda sana kung may landscape architect tayo,
Tama yun, sir.
Agree on what
Maganda po yun.
Architect Hill discussed about plants and trees being medicinal. Actually, in general, I would consider plants and trees and vegetation is as a public health infrastructure because it has many benefits to anyone's health. It provides clean air with the presence of yung sinabi ni NPJT na mga insects, birds. that would mean that the environment is good, very conducive to living, because these very small species were able to thrive. How much more for the people? If we can reminisce back, 'di ba, noon merong mga fireflies.
Yes.
Once the cities become more developed, nawawala yung mga insects, nawawala yung mga maliliit na species. So by having these trees and vegetation as public health infrastructure, we will be able to improve our cities. We will be able to improve our urban development towards a more healthier city, especially in this time of the pandemic. So basically, I would agree on your points, Architect Hill and Architect JT.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Architect Joseph. We also have what we call green infrastructure, no, in urban planning. So green infrastructure is basically just creating a network of green open spaces throughout your city, no. So connecting certain parks, no, by tree-lined avenues, no. So parang may network ka throughout the city na puro green. And maganda yung suggestions ni Architect Hill, Architect Joseph, no, na besides just being ornamental yung ating mga landscaping, they need to have some important functions, such as sabi nyo nga, medicinal, sa health, no. And why not make our planting strips more edible, no? We have cities actually, di ba? I think sa Davao yata yung nakita ko, no, na center islands, edible, nakaplant doon yung mga vegetables, no? So that's a very good strategy, no, to make our cities more livable, no? Because the city is not just for those who are working in offices, no, or taking the public transportation. It's for everyone. Kahit yung mga currently nakatira sa streets, no, they need to have access to various services in the city, and that's a very good way of providing food for them, no? We're not encouraging naman na they remain homeless, but making our planting strips more edible, that could be very beneficial for everyone in the city.
Sir, ENP, JT, since na nasabi ni Architect Hill tsaka ni Architect Joseph regarding dun sa metro projects nila dun sa Davao, at the same time, yung kay Architect Hill is nandoon siya sa mga railways projects. Did you consider din ba yung Hyperloop na ginagamit din dito na ngayon? Na kasi, especially now na nagkaroon ng Dubai Expo dito, meron silang Hyperloop na ginamit under construction na. From Dubai to Abu Dhabi, it's around 150 kilometers yung layo ng bawat isa. Pero tatakbuhin lang yun ng within 10 minutes. At the maximum speed of 1,200, if I'm not mistaken. Meron bang nako-consider na rin na mga, since na nagkakaroon na tayo ng mga subway, I know that masyadong mahal. Kasi tawag dito, below sea level tayo. Did you also consider na i-connect yung bawat archipelago as per Architect Hill mentioned as an urban planning? I'm just only considering that the fact na hindi tayo makikinabang na yung next generation. Did you already consider that one? Kumbaga parang yung mga subway ba yan is possible ba na maging hyperloop na?
Thank you, Architect Leo. Yan. So, I'm also aware din doon sa Hyperloop na yun, no? Yung Hyperloop kay sa Virgin Corporation, no, sa tinest siya sa Nevada. So, kasama rin doon sa Hyperloop na yun. I think maglev ba siya? Magnetic levitation ba siya?
Yes po.
Yeah, si maglev din ginagamit na rin sa Japan, sa China, no? So, it's very advanced. Siguro yung mga transport na specialist na urban planners could answer that better, no? So marami rin mga transport planner sa aming field. It's also a separate specialization. Pero right now, wala pa po ako naririnig na gano'n, no? Na inter-island na connection through bridges or kung through subway, no? Ito nga connection natin from Cavite to Bataan, medyo matagal, no? Matagal gawin, no? I think it's still under feasibility study by a Chinese company. Pero parang okay naman na sa other stakeholders na gawin siya, no? So the next step of course is for us to learn later on kung feasible ba na to connect yung different islands natin. Yan. So that's the only answer I can give to that, Architect Leo. Thank
Okay
you.
lang po.
If I may add,
Sir. Sorry, sir.
yes po.
Sige, sir.
Ako
Ikaw muna.
mauna. Sige po. If I may add, the national government is doing the connections of the archipelago. It might not be all the islands, but they are connecting from north to south or south to north. One particular example of that is the AH-26. If you will travel through AH-26 or Asian Highway 26, which is the international highway denoted for the Philippines, that is time that the construction of that highway is during the time of President Arroyo. And syempre, meron tayong areas na hindi talaga mabibridge ng highway or bridges. So, ENP JT mentioned earlier that the part of the national government's effort to bridge the gap between archipelagos is the RORO, the Nautical Navigation Highway, for areas that is not met with roads and bridges. So basically, there are national government efforts to bridge the archipelagos from north to south. It's just that hindi pa po lahat. It's a very big challenge to bridge everyone. But of course, since nandito na tayo sa modern development, part of which is the international commitment that no one is being left behind. So basically, and hopefully we get to the point na lahat na mako-connect natin, and hopefully we will get the technology on hyperloop and magnetic levitation. Yun nga sa Mindanao Railway sa Davao, yung sa first phase, ang pinropose is dual track electric na railway. Ang inapprove lang ng national government is single track locomotive. So basically, medyo malayo pa po talaga doon tayo sa mga hyperloop, magnetic levitation, etc. So, but we are thankful na meron ng railway for Mindanao. The first phase in Davao region. So, yun po.
10 years pa po.
Okay, ako na.
Additional 10 years pa.
Actually, may data ako rito. Annual investment in the Philippines since as of 2011, it was data coming from Asian Development Bank. Annual investment of road system, 0.6% of gross domestic product, GDP, which is lower than other countries in Southeast Asia. Ganun kababa. Diba? Ngayon, paano natin, since 2011 to ngayon, paano natin makukup up itong mga to? Because nasa archipelago country tayo. No? One thing here in Saudi, meron silang cargo rail connecting all the cities. Okay? And this cargo train is a bullet train. Now, they have some another options to connect this in all Middle East, going to Dubai, going to Qatar, going to Oman. Soon it will come here in this GCC. I'm just thinking only on the Philippines. If we have some connecting, I know it's very much it's a big project and it's a big investment, it's a big financial to support all of this kind of project. Only one cargo that can do a speed train to connect all the speed rail or to connect all this archipelago from Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. It's just possible for us is there any studies from the government right now? Still in Roro because it's a combination of sea transport. We have four transportation in the Philippines. That's sea transport, air transport, uh, urban transport. It's like this, no? But there is a possible in the Philippines, they have some project on this because this one is study as of 2011. From 2021, there is a foresight coming from this. Because it's a 0.6 annual investment in road system, 0.6% of gross domestic product, GDP, as per Asian Development Bank studies.
So basically po, masyadong mababa kasi 0.6. I think ngayon lang na medyo mas mataas yung spending on infrastructure. Hopefully, we will be able to get more allocation on government spending for infrastructure, including transportation, including for the different different sectors in the public that needs infrastructure, not just for transportation but also for health, etc. So I would agree that in the previous years, masyadong mababa po talaga yung government spending ng infrastructure, especially na throughout the last 6 years, medyo this year and last year bumaba yung spending for infrastructure again because of the pandemic. Because of the pandemic, medyo na-divert yung mga dapat i-google doon sa new airports, new form of transportation, new other infrastructures na dapat pinagtuunan ng pansin ngayon, binagay sa health, especially on vaccinations, ayuda, etc. So basically, I agree on Architect Hill na medyo mababa, and hopefully from any influence that we can give from the urban planners, from the architects, we would promote more government spending for infrastructure because this would help develop the basic needs for urban development, especially that infrastructure is also a backbone of the economy where business flourish because of the infrastructure-ready cities and municipalities.
Kasi sa akin, kailangan natin maka-attract ng mga international trade between the neighboring islands coming there para something na yung development, yung progress, hindi ma-delay. Kung meron tayong isang one-way system na mag-interconnect, alam ko malaking budget, it can help all of this, even the sub-regions can connect especially in other inhabiting para ma-develop din sila.
I agree. Depende lang po talaga yan kung how much can the government allocate for infrastructure, especially that the income estimate for the national government for the next fiscal year would be very limited, although that would be in trillions, pero all other development sectors would need budget allocation, like for education, housing, water, air, etc. Even information technology sector would need budget allocation. So basically, depending on the thrust of the president, especially for the coming president, kung ano yung magiging thrust niya, that will affect the budget allocation of the national government spending, especially on the infrastructure side. So hopefully we could advocate our different areas, regional offices of the national government that they would help promote in the increase in government spending towards infrastructure. Kasi I agree on those notes on Architect Hill na with interconnectivity from different areas, it could foster better trade and better economic activities. Yun nga sa Mindanao Railway, isa sa mga pinropose doon is aside from the passenger na part ng train or ng railway or ng cabs, meron ding cargo na part. So, but again, subject to the availability of funds, yung proposal, and since the fund given is very limited, so doon lang siya sa passenger na train yung na-approve, and then yung technology medyo mababa kasi it would cost higher but it would entail higher budget if it is in the technology of the railway is modern or yung electrified na propose. So basically, depende pa rin yan sa budget po. So I agree na dapat talaga i-increase yung government spending on infrastructure po.
Thank you, Architect Joseph and Architect Hill. May nabanggit kayo na si Architect Hill, no, na the one reason why we need yung ating infrastructure development is for some of our areas para ma-industrialize, no? Pero that's an ongoing debate, no? Agriculture or industrial ba ang ating magiging focus? Pero we have to remember, no? May kita rin natin to sa ating mga national plans, yung Philippine Development Plan, yung mga regional development plans natin. There is a hierarchy of settlements na tinatawag, no? So ibig sabihin, merong mga different roles yung ating mga cities natin. Hindi pwedeng lahat tayo ay mag-industrialize, no? Meron tayong different specializations. Depende yon kung ano yung mga comparative advantage ng ating mga cities, no? Saan malapit, ano yung resources na malapit sa kanila, no? Mas marami ba silang competitive labor, no? So marami ding hinahanap na factors yung mga industries natin. Maraming criteria, no, for industrial location. And sa Pilipinas, we have to balance yung ating industrialization with our agricultural development. Both of them have to be given mas masusing pag-aaral, no? Kasi right now, gusto nating lahat umangat ang buhay natin, and one of the ways, no, for us to do that is through industrialization. Kaya lang no, we will be increasing din our greenhouse gas emissions, no? And ang commitment ng Philippines sa tinatawag na Paris Agreement ng 2015, ang commitment natin, no, sabi ni President Duterte, is we have to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 75% by 2030, no? So how can you do that if you are industrializing at the same time? Tapos with our increasing global temperatures, then kawawa yung ating agricultural sector kasi every 1 degree Celsius sa ating global temperatures nagde-decrease by 3.2% ang productivity ng ating rice, no? So one more thing, sa Asia predicted po, no, doon sa pinaka-recent na Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change na report, na sa Asia in the coming years magkakaroon tayo ng increased number of days na may extreme heat, and at the same time increased number of days na increased rainfall, no? So imagine niyo yung magiging devastation nito sa ating agricultural area. So marami tayong kailangang i-balance. Yun nga, nasabi natin kanina, no, Architect Joseph, ang daming stakeholders, ang daming dapat i-consider, no? So there are a lot of things that we have to think about when we are planning for urban spaces and planning for urban development. Thank you.
Oh. Ayun lang, sir. Maraming salamat, Sir JT.
So,
Thank
JT,
you,
may
Architect.
tanong lang po ako. Ito yung last question. What approach of urban planning that you will suggest to Malabon? Going back to urban planning. Considering the fact that the Malabon is the first city that experienced climate change for the past 4 to 5 decades and becoming worse this few years. Did you consider also ba na gumawa rin ng desalination plant? At the same time, the sewage treatment, wherein we can use that one on the sewage treatment. For example, yung aeration system, na yung first aeration system niya is pwedeng gamitin as parang pandilig din sa mga urban areas natin, at the same time dun sa mga island natin na kung saan pwedeng yung sinasabi nyo nga dati is pwede tayong magkaroon ng vegetation. At the same time, is there any plan din ba, aside from we're focusing on the NCR, did you also consider din ba yung mga regional urban planning din natin? Like, since ang Metro Davao is there now, I've heard that meron din pala sila. Metro Cebu, meron din. Nakaka-focus lang tayo dun sa mga parang business hub. But question, did you also consider din ba katulad ng Panay, yung mga hindi masyadong naririnig, Mindoro, Negros Oriental, did you have also did NEDA or Asian Development Bank or JICA also consider these islands that I think we need to develop?
Okay, thank you, sir. Architect Leo.
Yes,
First, yung sa Malabon muna, yung question nyo regarding sa ano yung strategies for Malabon to adapt to to the climate change and to the rising sea level.
yes.
The default answer na isasagot sa atin ng mga implementers and decision makers is, first of all, seawalls. Yan yung usual na answer. Seawall, increase the flood protection elevation level ng roads, ng buildings. We can densify buildings. Pero personally po, if I would like to really make sure na safe yung ating mga coastal cities and municipalities. Actually, there are I think 929 na coastal LGUs in the Philippines, na vulnerable to sea level rise. And right now we have 1,634 LGUs. So more than half ng ating mga LGUs coastal talaga. So ano yung best na pwedeng gawin and most controversial na pwedeng gawin para ma-save yung ating mga coastal cities? Relocation. They have to move inland na po. Doon sa IPCC report, yung 6th assessment report released last August, ito na yung tinatawag nila na parang red alert na for humanity. Dinescribe nila yung different scenarios regarding climate change. And merong mga changes sa ating mundo na irreversible na. Hindi natin mababago na basta-basta kahit pa mag-stop ngayon yung ating greenhouse gas emissions. One of those things is sea level rise. They have simulated 4 scenarios na mangyayari sa mundo. 2 of those scenarios, yung medyo medium tsaka high scenario, sinasabi ron na maaring mag-rise ang sea levels natin by 1 meter within this century. So mababa pa yon. Actually, kapag nag-melt yung Greenland ice sheet, we only have 2 ice sheets sa mundo. So pag yung Greenland ice sheet ay nag-melt completely, that would raise sea levels by 7 meters. So, ganun karami yung yelo yung tubig na madalagdag sa ating sea levels with its melting. And alarmingly, yung Greenland ice sheet, sabi yung kanyang melting is now faster than the ice formation. Balik tayo sa Malabon. Sa Malabon, yung problem is not just sea level rise, but also subsidence. Hindi lang Malabon, but the entire Metro Manila. Pag sinabing subsidence, di ba, alam natin yan, parang medyo lumulubog na yung ating cities dahil sa bigat ng developments natin and sa sobra-sobra nating groundwater extraction. So marami tayong deep wells na kumukuha ng tubig sa ilalim. So multiple problems na kakaharapin ng Malabon in our coastal cities. We really need to think about relocating our coastal communities inland. Kasi definite na po yan na mangyayari in the next decade, in the next few years, sea level rise. It's controversial and it's very hard kasi it's expensive. Paano bibili ang LGU ng lupa sa ibang LGU para i-transfer yung kanilang population? Pero alam po natin nangyari na yan in other countries in the world. Yung island nation of Tuvalu tsaka Kiribati, bumili sila ng entire property sa ibang bansa para mai-transfer yung kanilang population dahil projected na talagang lulubog yung bansa nila in the next few years. Yan. So, yun po yung controversial answer and I think that's that's the best answer, I think. No, relocation talaga. Next po, you also asked about desalination plants, no? So we also propose this sa mga LGUs, pero laging question nila is about yung cost, no? So medyo mahal pa siya sa Pilipinas right now. Pero with our very long coastlines, no? Dahil sa archipelagic tayo, ito yung pinakamagandang source natin of fresh water sana. Instead of constructing dams, no? Medyo controversial din yung dams natin ngayon. For example, yung Kaliwa Dam. Pero maraming environmental damage kasi kapag dams yung approach natin. So, yes sir, we are considering, no, desalination plants, and it's a better way of producing our fresh water. As well as yung other question niyo po is sewage treatment. I think we have 1 or 2 na sewage treatment plants na bagong kinommission ng, I think, DNR along Manila Bay, no? So one of that is nasa along I think Rojas Boulevard, no? So meron naman po, we are constructing sewage treatment plants. Medyo challenging pa, no, yung sewage system, no? We have to really have this what we call yung sewage master plan. Medyo mahal pa rin po sa Pilipinas, no, yung pagpapagawa ng sewage master plan. Involved dyan mga geodetic and civil engineers. And bukod po doon, no, sa sinabi nyo, desalination, sewage treatment, gray water recycling, another thing that we should prepare for sa Pilipinas is yung ating groundwater resources. Currently po, wala pa po ako naririnig ng entire survey ng Pilipinas, ng ating mga aquifers, ng ating groundwater. Kasi malaking problema po yan in the future, no? Kapag nadali po tayo ng extreme heat, no? Lahat po tayo magko-compete sa deep wells. Pero ang tanong is, meron pa ba tayong tubig in the few years sa mga deep wells natin, no? Kasi hindi natin alam, wala tayong survey ngayon, gaano kabilis tayo mag-extract.
Salamat po, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Ayan. So, lahat po ba ng inyong mga katanungan na itanong nyo na po? Okay. So, maybe we can ask for some final takes now from Architect Hill. Any final take po sa ating napag-usapan po sa mga nasabi ni ENPJT?
May oras pa tayo.
Yes.
Another.
Part 2.
Ano na po? Or ano na,
Parang bitin eh.
Don't worry po, magkakaroon po tayo ng manghingi po tayo ng another episode for this talakayan. Nakakabitin po kasi napakalawak talaga.
Oo, masyadong malawak yung topic na to eh. Pero happy okay naman na yung ganitong talk natin wala na ako masabi, basta kontento na ako sa mga response ni Sir JT and Sir Joseph and Architect Leo, Architect Joseph. Okay na.
Ayan. Thank you very much, Architect Hill. Yan. Architect Joseph, any final take sa ating napag-usapan?
Yun po, I would like just to emphasize na importante po yung roles ng mga urban planners, architects, and even those in other sectors sa urban development. So, I hope that we will be able to promote a very good urban development that would take na lahat tayo magtutulungan. And as an architect and also an urban planner, and as chapter president of North Davao, I will take this as an opportunity to campaign for a better urban developed city na for our areas dito sa Davao del Norte, Davao del Sur, Davao Oriental, and Davao de Oro. So basically, maganda yung points na na-discuss kanina on ano yung mga i-prioritize hanggang dun sa infrastructure ng transportation, hanggang dun sa mga plants and vegetation as public health infrastructure. Ang ganda ng discussion. So, nag-enjoy ako sobra. So, maraming salamat talaga. Especially na maraming salamat sa Archizonian chapter for inviting me here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Architect Joseph. And Architect Leo, final take po.
I'm very grateful po and also gratified din sa speaker po natin ngayon or at sa ating guest speaker po natin ngayon si Sir ENPJT, same time kay Architect Hill at kay Architect Joseph. Thank you rin po, at least meron po palang ginagawa ang government natin in spite the fact na meron tayong mga problems sa government natin. At least yung mga yung mga LGUs is meron din parang ginagawa para dun sa kanilang mga constituents din. At the same time, maraming salamat din, at least na-enlighten din kami, lalo na kaming mga OFW, na meron din ginagawa na urban planning, not concentrated din sa NCR. At least yung mga kababayan natin na nasa regional district is maano rin nila, ma-enjoy din nila kung ano yung development na meron ang NCR. Nang sa ganun, hindi na sila pumunta rin sa NCR. At kung pumunta man sila for visit na lang, hindi na sila, kasi mahirap talaga na ang nangyayari na ngayon is more on sa NCR. Nawawala na lang, kumbaga hindi, nalileft behind yung nila, yung kung saan sila nanggaling. Para sa akin kasi, although ako, yung parents ko is galing sa Quezon and Marinduque, pero at least meron palang projects ang government natin with regards to sa mga ganyan infrastructures and urban development. Yun nga lang is priority, parang ipaprioritize kung ano talaga at sino yung mga kailangan. I'm very thankful for that. And Architect Ava for this.
Thank you very much, Architect Leo. So, and also to our guest, ENPJT Maldupana. Yan, ano po ang inyong final take sa ating usapan? At lalo na siguro baka meron kayong gustong parating sa ating mga architects na involved po sa urban planning. Yan.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I would like to emphasize lang din we have to help each other, planners, architects, engineers, and other professions, in order for us to make our cities more livable, more vibrant, more inclusive, more resilient, and of course more sustainable. So maganda po ito. I'd like to praise the UAP Archizonian chapter for organizing this kind of event. Maganda po, nagkakaroon tayo ng interchange between professions. Napaganda po ang opportunity nito. I hope po may ganito pa in the future, and I can refer you to other environmental planners as well who can also share their insights. Thank you, Architect Leo, Architect Hill, Architect Joseph. I've also learned a lot from you, from your different perspectives. Ang ganda rin ng mga na-share niyo po kanina. And I hope we can have a talakayan din. Another talakayan in the future. I know po, bitin po tayo lahat. No?
Yes.
Once again, thank you kay Chapter President Majore Fortin-Buendia and our very lively, very excellent na host, Architect Ava. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, ENPJT. Ayan, napakaganda po ng ating usapan this evening, and I guess with this discussion, marami pong nakalap na kaalaman, hindi lamang ating mga architects, urban planners, and other professionals, pati na rin pong ang ordinaryong Pilipino, And also, hopefully, napapanood din tayo ng ating mga government officials para they can include this in their platforms, yung pagpapaigi ng kanilang mga development in long terms. Ayan, that will really help their constituents. Again, maraming salamat po sa ating mga reactors, Architect Hill, Architect Joseph, Architect Leo, and of course, to our guest tonight, ENPJT Maldupana. Maraming salamat po. I do hope po maulit nga, sabi nyo nga, maulit itong ganitong usapan natin in a more specific and detailed one kasi napakalawak talaga ng urban development. And I guess marami pang mga hindi pa na i-floor na mga questions. Ayan. So sa ating po mga manonood, mapapanood nyo rin po itong MArCadong Talakayan through our UAP MArC YouTube channel. And hopefully, makasubscribe din po kayo sa YouTube channel po namin. And so mapapanood rin nyo po ito via FB Live. Yun po. Salamat po sa inyong lahat. See you again sa susunod po nating episode ng MArCadong Talakayan. This is your host, Architect Ava Villaflores Sumabal, saying samahan niyo po kaming mga Archizonians na maghatakan pataas. God bless po everyone.